Alright, so after doing that whole little bit of recording, I've completely forgot to unmute my microphone, which is great. About 20 minutes worth of recording. It's gone. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for joining this video. I hope that this little series will continue to go for a while. I plan on doing an update hopefully more than once a week as of right now, just until I start seeing the views pick up. I do this for fun mainly, but I would like to help contribute to the community. There are a lot of tutorials out there and things like that, but they're very quick and they kind of skim over a lot of things and they don't explain the importance of why. And I think that that is something that's very important when it comes to modeling, whether that be in game production, animation, or just for fun, just for someone learning, because that's actually how I started out. So, it was just something for fun that I like to do, and it sort of grew into something bigger. So, yeah. I don't want to get too far into that. I'm sure I'll talk over time, but basically, this is what this channel is going to be for. It's going to be for people that want to, whether you're just now starting out, or you're someone who's just refreshing, or maybe one of these videos is going over something that you need to do for a project. You can always kind of learn something along the way, even if you think it doesn't pertain to what you're doing right now. You might find a way to use that. So, in this first little video, I thought I'd do something very simple, but something that's it's often overlooked when it's done well. When it's done very badly, you definitely pay attention to it more and it sticks out like a sore thumb. And what I'm talking about is grass. Grass is one of those things that you really don't pay attention to until the very end. Sorry, I was looking for my other mouse. I don't know where that went. But grass is one of those things that you really don't pay attention to until it's done so poorly that you just can't help but notice it. Although there are some times when it's done very well. Like on Dark Souls, for instance, they have some incredible foliage in that game, and I know that sounds really silly, but if you've played the series, you know what I'm talking about in a lot of the areas. So anyways, we're going to do some really simple grass, and then at a later time we'll do something a little more complex with much more depth. But I'm just going to show you how a simple low poly grass can be very effective without having to go and get crazy with it and make it fully rendered out and all this kind of stuff. It's not necessary. It's going to be something, unless you're making a grass simulator, no one's going to pay that much attention to it, and they really shouldn't. They should be focused on the game. The environment should just help contain the character and move them along and tell the story. I know it sounds silly, but things like grass are very, very, very important. So, let's go ahead and get started. First thing that we need is a plane. This plane is definitely not what we need. This has way too many tries. Well, too many faces, really, but it has 100 faces, and that is way too much for what we need. We can bump this down to 1, and bump this down to 4. If we need more than 4, we can add those later. Let's go ahead and resize this just by pressing R is the hotkey for that. Size it down to something like this, And I like that. Yeah, that's fine. And let's go ahead and move our pivot point by pressing, going back to the move tool and pressing D for dog, V for Victor, and moving down to bottom left or bottom right. Either way, it doesn't matter. And we can hold X, move it along the X axis up 1, and you can see it snaps right there, which is what we want. Let's rotate it. And you can either rotate it this way. Personally, I like to go up here into the attribute editor. If you don't have that, it's going to be this little icon right up here. You can click it to show and hide it, and it adds it to your tabs here on the far right. Really, you really want to have your attribute editor open at all times. You're going to be going back and forth to that, so just keep that open, or at least tabable. Go in here and let's rotate this 90 degrees so that it's straight up and down. There's a hotkey for this, and sometimes I don't know. I know it's in 2017 that it tends to stick, but it's called snap, and you can hold down J, and when you rotate it snaps to 15-degree angles, which is really cool. However, sometimes it turns snapping on for all your other tools. I'll show you what I mean by that later, because I'm sure I'm going to have that problem. When you release J, it goes back to normal. So, I'll go back and fix that to 90 degrees. There's about 90 different ways to do one thing in a lot of Autodesk's programs, and that's no exception with Maya. So, learning different ways to do it can't hurt anything. So we'll say that this is our grass. This is not by any scale for an engine, so keep that in mind. If you're making something, keep it to the scale that you need to. Our UV editor, go ahead and open that up, and well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Go ahead and close it. Let us do an automatic UV. Since this isn't a complicated model, there's no reason to do anything crazy. So we've automatically mapped our object. And it may not make a lot of sense right now, but just know if you're going through it just to do a simple tutorial to how to make grass, this is going to be it. That's one of the steps you need to do. So let's go and click right to open up our navigation wheel. Go down to Assign New Material. Scroll down your list until you see Lambert. And this is going to add a new material. We can call this Grass Blade. It's always good to keep naming your objects, whether they be textures or they be your actual objects, because as your scene gets bigger and you start making more objects, when you start looking through, it gets kind of convoluted, and you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting to, especially if you're working with a group of people and you have to hand this off to someone. They're not going to know what texture is what. I mean, if they had another, we'll bring a sphere in here. You have another sphere in here, and I also want to make this, piece of grass. Well, I can instantly do that. It doesn't look like anything changed at that point because we haven't really messed with the colors, but as you can see, those are both the same texture. So anyways, let's get rid of that. Over here on the right, this little checker pattern, this is going to give us more options for the color input. Let's call this pull it up as checkered. You see that nothing pops up. Where's my texture at? Alright. Press a 6 on the number pad. That's going to show your shaded view. 6 is for shaded, 5 is for flat. So always really leave on 6 unless you're lighting. We'll deal with that at a later time. So there's our checker pattern. You kind of notice that this is all wrong. We have rectangles instead of squares. And that doesn't look like what we have over here. So when we did our automatic UV mapping, what that did is created a set of UVs over here, and these are basically, excuse me, I can't talk, I drink water. These are basically, where did my chat go? Excuse me for 1 second. Get rid of that. There it is, there it is, there it is. Okay, so basically what the UVs are coordinates for our textures. It's really, I'm sure there's a much better explanation for that, but that's what it does. So, if you're using Maya 2017, I like to keep the texture borders on so I can see what I'm doing, and also make sure that display image is on or you'll see nothing. And yeah, that's it. Keep your turn that off. The second one here is shaded UV. This is going to make sure that we can see exactly where our object lies within this image here. And right now it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you can tell that the plane that we put down from the beginning, which was a square, it's filling up this entire area, and that's not what we want. So come over here to UV, right click, open the wheel, and go to UV, and we'll select this left hand side. And we'll start shrinking it, and you can see as we shrink it over here, it's getting bigger. And you want to make these roughly into squares as close as you can. It's not imperative on this particular model that everything be the correct size, but as you can see on this, they're pretty close to being perfect squares, and that's what we want. So let's move it somewhere over here. Whatever, we'll leave it in the middle. Again, doesn't really matter. We just want to keep everything to scale, knowing that when we go to the next step, that nothing's going to be distorted. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. A little better. Same thing with the left and the right of the moving, yada yada yada, whatever. So let's go to this little icon here, and it is UV snapshot. I believe it is also, I'm not sure where it is in 2016. I do not remember. Maybe it is still the same image, UV snapshot. So you can either go to it there, or you can click here on the little taskbar. Under file name, you want to find an area where you're going to save this image, and we'll save it there. We'll say grass blade UV. And our size, we really don't have to worry about this since it's going to be small anyways. So 256 by 256 is fine. Keep our aspect ratio, color value, anti-aliasing, keep all that the same. On this, I would say go ahead. I think we can get away with using a PNG since we're going to need something with transparency, and you'll see why in a minute. So save it as a PNG. Everything pretty much as default except for your file location and the fact that it's a PNG. Click OK. In my case, I already had that, so. Oh, very important step. Make sure that you select the item that the object that you want to export the UVs of, or else you will get nothing. You get a little error message. So we've made sure we've selected the item object and click OK. And you can see it saved the file. So what that did is actually created an image for us. And you can see that, well, created an image with a transparency, so it looks like a whole lot of nothing. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. Well, before we do that, let's rename this to UV. And let's create a new layer and call it background. Move that below the UV, and we're going to paint it black, the background layer black. So this area right here is where we need to paint our grass blade or our multiple grass blades, however you want to do it. So as long as you stay within this area, you're good. Anything that goes out is not going to be carried over onto the model. So what you can do, create another layer, and we'll call this the diffuse layer. Now, all you have to do is get your pen to start working, grab a brush, doesn't matter what it is, and paint something. We're going to paint some really rough grass. We'll go a little lighter than normal. And, wow, why is our... there we go. We're going to create something really rough, like some really thick, not even some really thick, rough grass. Okay, so let's do. That's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. That's not what I want. God, it's been a long day. Let's do a little burning and dodging and burning and doesn't matter. It is. We just want something that looks like sort of grass. So, again, it's going to be small. We're not really going to see it, but still. Just burnishing and dodging and whatever you want to do. Let's burn it again. Let's go like whatever. Again, doesn't matter. It's going to be grass. We're not going to see it. But I do want to add an actual... I'd like to add a black outline to this because I want it to be a little stylized. So what we're going to do is not add a gradient. Do a color, solid color of black. Okay. Make it small on the outside. And wow, that's a large eraser. Not sure why my eraser is that big, but or why I cannot adjust the size of it. And of course, my pen is going to, wow, crash on me. Alright. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Sort of reverse. And again, super, super, super low quality. But the idea is still the same. Let's actually go and delete like that. Like so. No, I don't like that. Leave it how it was. Maybe add nope. Why is the pen pressure not cooperating with me today? No. That's probably why. Alright, let's try that again and see. Okay, simple, really goofy looking grass. And you know what? I think we want to give this a little more. And again, this may be the grass that you pay attention to because it's so bad. But, whatever. No one cares about your opinion. No. Just example, folks. Just examples. That's all we're going for here. So, now that we've got our grass, really weird looking hat grass, we can go ahead and turn our UV channel off and delete it. Same goes for our background. Well, yeah, same goes for our background. And delete it. And let's go ahead, since we had that on there, rasterize it. And we want to create a new channel by holding Control and clicking on our layer. It's going to load the whole selection. Go to Channels and click right here. This is going to make a new channel. It's going to be an alpha channel. Everything on this, everything that is black is going to be not visible, and everything that is white is going to be visible. So, let's go ahead and, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah. Back to our layer. Now, save as. Believe we can do this as a PNG, so we're going to save it as a PNG, and we're going to just call it grass diffuse. Maya also likes underscores. This is why I've kind of gotten into the habit of putting them in everything that I do. So we're going to tell it to save So we cannot save it as a PNG. We need to save it as a target file. And make sure that the alpha channels are selected, because if you don't have them selected, you're going to have some problems. So click on Save. Click 32-bit, because that's going to be what you need for the transparency to come through. So, okay. Let's go back into Maya. And now, where we had our checker pattern that we so wonderfully named Grass Blade, we're going to go back to it, and we're going to why? That's not what I want to do. I wanted to break the connection. Anyways, let's just go ahead and then we'll assign a new material, and we will call it a Lambert. In our color, we want to go over here to File, and nothing happens. Our image name, we need to find the project that we have. I think the next video I'll explain the importance of setting project files so it always opens to where you need it, so you don't have to locate everything. Our grass texture, you can see, ooh, nice. really bad grass, and click open, and immediately you can see that we have a texture of grass, and it looks horrible. We have a nice white outline around it. Now, that white outline can easily be fixed. What we have to do is go into our alpha channel, and we can go to select, modify, contract, and we can contract this by, let's say 3 pixels. That is way too much. And select, modify, we'll feather by 2 pixels. Not feather. It is going to be in just modify, contract by 1 pixel. Let's do that. And since we know that black is going to be solid and white is going to be, or black is going to be transparent, white is going to be visible, we will Control-Shift-I to select the inverse and paint away just like this, so that away it shrinks, and we will have some very grass when we're done. So turn them all back on, come back to our save as, Targa, grass blade, save it, saved, and if we're lucky, which we're not, click reload, and it still did not fix our problem. Interesting. Anyways, that's not really important. We'll figure that out next time. So now we've got this nice flat looking piece of grass that really kind of leaves a lot to be desired. Let's go back into our attribute panel and select our object. You know what? Let's not even do that. Let's go into the modeling toolbox. I think this is a good place for this. Select the multi-cut tool, and what we're going to do is we're going to add another edge directly down the center. Now we do that is we go to the top here, hold Control and Shift, and it's going to snap to, who knows what increments those are, but find the middle and click. Now you have one directly in the center. We're done with that, and click back on something else, it'll go away. Alright, so now we've got our grass, and probably could have made that a little smaller, a little tweaking, but that's okay. I think that'll be fine for this. Let's go in here and let's start playing around with the shape of our grass. I'd like to have it so that these and you really should do your UV mapping after you've adjusted all of this, but because this again is grass, it's not going to matter, and you're really going to change them up anyways. Each one's going to be a little different than the other one, so it's a-okay to push and pull and play around with it, because grass is always, kind of distorted and never the same. So just play around with it, push it, pull it, don't go too crazy so it's all really bent out of shape. But you can see we're getting, and we'll move those, and I'll select the object, and we'll move that to the center, X, move that back, clump of grass. Now all we have to do, duplicate this, Control D, maybe scale it up a little bit, maybe adjust it this way, Control D, rotate it around, scale it down, rotate, scale it down, maybe move it out a little bit. And you make it until you find something that you really like. I mean, that's really all that it is. Now, for some reason, I'm not sure why, I can see through those. There's got to be a way, and for some reason, it has completely escaped me right now that is it couldn't be that we don't have a light in our scene. Let's go ahead and we'll do it and see if that helps. Ambient light, is it? It was. And we'll just continue some more grass. This is going to be a weird little clump. But you see how And again, this is super. You can spend a lot more time than what I did on making grass. Um, but that is basically it. And then when you have this into a game engine, you can see it's 112, which may be a lot. You could probably, I'm sure, condense that down, but considering that our one plane was 200 tries, and now we're down to 112, and we have a much more interesting arrangement of grass with a really obnoxious white outline. You know what? That's going to bug me to no end. Sample view. It's the mask. You know what? I know what the problem is. By default, sitting here looking for the answer when I'm well aware of what the answer is. Almost positive that if I create a black background and where's our history? Let's go back so that our alpha channel still has that outline around it. Oops, okay. And let's go ahead and do that. Here, paint it with black. File, save as a targa, grass blade, diffuse, save, yes, 32-bit, Maya, reload, there she goes. Because it default fills that with white, that's why the alpha channel was getting that white outline. And since we wanted the black outline, we definitely should have filled it with black. That was a mistake on my part. So see, it's always, you always forget the little things, and then it comes back to you at some point. Just something will jog your memory. So what was I doing? Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll duplicate a couple of these over. Maybe change the size of it. And you know what? Let's go ahead and make a group. Group them all together. Mesh, combine. Combine? Is it? No, it just doesn't matter. So now that whenever we duplicate them, it's one object. And I can duplicate a couple of these around randomly. Rotate it around. Duplicate these. Rotate it around. Control D. Over here. There. Scale. Control D. Here. See. We'll do. And here. We'll scale these up. Maybe even more than that. And you see how something that even really didn't look that great, whenever you start combining them together, you start getting a much better effect. And this isn't something that you would notice. You would be running over top of this. And just by spending, I mean, yeah, it may have taken a little longer, but that's because I was explaining everything. You know, you can get some really good results. And when you start using things like this in an engine, quickly see how everything just works. You know, as one piece, it doesn't look very good, but when you combine it all together, you get some really neat stylized grass. Let's even do a render of this. Let's see what a render would look like. Except, where's our light at? Let's get rid of this light. I don't like the ambient lighting. Let's add, I want a directional light. And we'll do over this way, just so I can see what I'm doing. Let's duplicate it a couple more times. Oops, I don't need the light. Minus the light. Control D. We'll move you this way. Rotate all of them. Control D. Move it a little more. Control D. Move it. Control D. Move it. I'm just kind of goofing off at this point, but you know. Oh, can't move it that way. we'll render it. That's fine. I think we're fine with that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's render our scene. Do not want Maya vector. That's silly. It should be. Wow, I forgot how much Maya software really is really slow. I don't even know what size it's rendering that at. I guess running a streaming software doesn't help either. So, yeah, you know, simple, easy, to the point. Regular old video game grass. And of course, once it's in an engine, you know, you can add waviness to it, and I'm sure we'll do that. I'll save this asset for a later video when we add it to the Unreal Engine and add some motion to it. And then you can really see just how simple grass, you know, really works. So if you worked along and you are, you know, keeping some of these models for yourself, working along with it, that is awesome. I would like to thank you again for joining me on this video. Again, something really super simple, but you would be surprised at how easy it is to forget a lot of these little things. And not only that, I think it's good for people to kind of take a step back and remember that you don't have to have a high, fully rendered out, round piece of grass, you know. Sometimes all it is just a couple of planes with transparencies, and it ends up making the best grass. Once you clump it all together, you're not going to notice any tiny little imperfections. I mean, look at that. Is that, you know, my best looking piece of grass I've ever made? No, definitely not. That's quite horrible. But the principle is, it's small. You don't notice it. When you clump it all together, it looks amazing because, you know, it's full and it's lush, and you can help the game along run faster because you're using less polygons. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more videos like this, please go and donate to me on Patreon. I have a couple of things planned for those that are subscribers. By you subscribing, you're helping this channel move forward. And it just lets me know that my work is really appreciated. And you know, I enjoy hearing feedback. I know these are long videos, but I feel like they really, if you're interested in learning this stuff, you're not going to be able to pick up, you know, a 5-minute video or a 10-minute video and really get, well, too much out of it, because you really need to see someone really work through it. As you can see, I had plenty of problems, but that's just because, we forget things. We forget the simple things. This is more of a refresher for myself as well. So, again, thanks for watching, and in the next video, I think we're going to go through and we're going to create a ground plane, like some rocks or something like that, to add to our grass. Maybe we'll keep it in the same style with this kind of black outline. I think that looks really cool, kind of Borderland-esque. But the rocks, I think you're going to be surprised at just how complicated rocks can be if you're not prepared for it. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing you all in the next videos. Shoot me an email, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all at a later date. Bye.